Okay, so we did the project status update. So we would okay. So we would do the status update every Thursday, and so I really would like people to be here. So as we have more questions as this goes forward, that they can be answered. So a little bit more about being productive with Android programming. First of all, Logcat. So remember that your phone has no system.out. So if you were to print something to system.out, right, where would it show up? And so the way that you deal with that is you use the log manager. Android has its own log manager that's different from those that you might have used elsewhere. But it's super simple and easy to use. So there's two ways that you can see the output. One is that there's one of the many windows in Android Studio that shows it, and you'll see that in the lab. And also, if you have an actual device, then you can attach your device to your computer and run ADB logcat, and then it gives a steady stream of log messages in the terminal. And that's also useful. There's also apps that you can install on your phone to look at the logs, and that is really useful if you have a third person testing your app, and then something goes wrong, and assuming that third person is technically inclined, then you can tell him or her to open up that app, tell what search strings you want, and then you can see the log messages right there. The one that I've been using some time ago was called Catlog, and it had a feature where one could email parts of the log to the developer, and that's really useful. So the API is dead simple. All you do is you call log.e. So there's this class log. They kept it as short as they could. And .e makes an error message, .d makes a debug message, .w warning, and there's a .i for information. And it's customary to include some string that identifies where the thing comes from, and if I have nothing else that I can think of doing, I just call get class to string. And assuming that I've used a package name that has like edu or sjsu or something, then that's going to be unique enough. This just has to be something that one can search, because you're not the only one on the phone who generates log messages. There's dozens of apps that do the same thing. And then the message is whatever message you want to have recorded. So that's real simple and useful. Now, moving on to how to do drawings, it's a little bit different than what you've seen in Swing. So you already know that the things that are called components in Swing exist in Android. We've had buttons, and we've had what's called a text view. And so what's called a component in Swing is called a view in Android. And you can simply draw on a plain view, kind of similarly on how you can draw on a J component in Swing. You make a subclass, and you override the onDraw method. And so it's really exactly like in Swing, where instead of overriding main component, now you override onDraw. And you also get some object that you draw on, and instead of being called a graphics, it's called a canvas. But that's just the terminology. It's the same kind of thing. So now, here's where they start diverging a little bit. Graphics 2D has a generic method to draw any shape. And you're painfully familiar now with that shape interface because you had to deal with it in the homework. There's no such thing in Android at all. It's a much more 1970s style architecture where there's a bunch of methods. There's draw line, draw circle, draw text, and whatever. Whatever. It is what it is. And so the way that you draw something is you just call one of these methods. One thing that's maybe a little bit nicer is that in Android, in Swing, the graphics 2D object has a fat global state. So it has the current font, the current color, the current stroke, and all of that. And you always have to first set that global state, and then you have one of your drawing operations, and it's done under that state. Here, they try to do it a little bit nicer in that you have to pass in what you want for painting. So there's an object called paint that has color, stroke width, and other properties for the painting. And you pass it in with each of the calls. That way you can prepare the paints the way you want and pass them in, and you don't have to worry about whether the current state is accurate. Like one of the things that's always awkward in with graphics 2D is if someone changes the color, that color change persists in the graphics 2D object, because that's then used to draw other things on the screen, then they might pick up the wrong color. And you're always supposed to restore everything to the way it was before, but people don't always do that. So here they avoid that problem by making you pass in the state. When you have a phone, you don't usually operate it with a mouse. So maybe you can add one, I don't know. There's touch events. And they work quite differently. So you've seen how the mouse events and mouse motion events work. You add an event listener following the observer pattern. And again, Android doesn't do that. They instead make you, on the view, make you override a method called onTouchEvent, and then you have to do something with the event. You get all of the events flow into the same method, and so you get something that's a motion event, and then you have to figure out what kind of motion event it is. Is it an action? Is it an action down means that someone puts the finger down. There are like 6 or 7 others of these, so it's totally unobject oriented. And it's a big switch statement here, or a big if-else statement, that where you're supposed to then react to the various kind of touchy things that can happen. The other minor thing is, just as with Swing, the event contains the x and y coordinates of wherever something is happening. They come to you as floats, and since that's inconvenient, I gave you how to turn them into ints for your project, so, for the lab thing, so you can just copy and paste them. One other important thing is in Swing we call repaint, if we want to force a repaint. And the same thing is called post-invalidate here. Invalidate is kind of the same idea as repaint. It means that now the picture is invalid and it should be repainted. The post-invalidate is supposed to remind you that it's not doing anything right now. It's just posting an event on the event queue that says things should be redrawn in some auspicious time. And that's all you need to know to start doing some drawing. So I'm making you do a little paint program that draws some rectangles so that you can drag them with either your mouse in the emulator or with your finger on the actual phone. If you do it with a finger on the actual phone, you might want to increase the size of the rectangles ever so slightly. So go, pick a partner and have at it just like last time. So we have 3 people here. Do you want to work as a team of 3, or does one of you want to work alone? Okay. Try the team of 3 things. Aha. IDE internal error. Yes, the same as last time, just except all defaults, empty activity. Res. It's a new Java class. Okay. 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 Yes. Okay. Error inflating class. Oh, when you do this, you need to be careful with the package name here in the XML file. So this is I just ran into the site. I just copied and pasted this without looking at it. Never a great strategy. And so it's a simple drawing view, and the package was the one that when I developed the lab at home that I used. Now here I used a slightly different package name, so they have to match because what the Android device will read this file and then it'll read through all the class names and try to instantiate them. So when I didn't do that, I got a message that said binary XML file line number 18, error inflating class. So what inflating means is it's trying to read through this file here and it's trying to make an instance of this non-existent class. So now I have to see what package name I actually used. And all of you will have chosen different package names, so you'll all run into this. And put that in the XML file. There we go. Unfortunately. So when you admire that little square here is, one of the questions that I had is, why is it a square? So when you look at the source, it says here 10, 20, 30, 40. So what do these numbers even mean, right? If this was a rectangle 2D dot double, that wouldn't work at all, right? Then it would be 30 wide and 40 tall. And so I said, look it up in the API. How on earth are you going to find the API? Yeah, exactly, right? There's a company expressly formed for this purpose, namely Google. So, Droid API, what are we doing? Draw rect? Or was it rect? Or was it rect? Here we go. And then when you look at the rect constructor, see what the numbers actually mean. It's different, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Untouched. idiot. Yeah, emulator? Yeah, that's why I suggested to use the Nexus 4,
Yeah.
having
Well, I can-
anticipated this issue.
I can reset.
You can make it half size somehow.
I was using that one and then it started crashing.
It's actually kind of amazing how high the resolutions of screens you have on phones nowadays. Yeah. Yeah, there's where it says rectangle. Yeah, make that into rect. That's on the third page. Yeah. All right, just want to make sure that everyone's has seen this. So, so I'm now at the stage where I tap on here and nothing shows up on the screen, and you see the messages on the on draw here that show that the redrawing has been triggered. And so when we look at the messages, so here are all these squares that it says it's been drawing, right? Oh, I didn't even draw them. See, I made the square, but I didn't draw it, so that's. But no, it's drawn here, right? No, it's drawn here, right here. So why doesn't it get drawn? Well, it's square, it's rectangle right here. 176, 302. That must be the mouse coordinates. 2020.
No, but there is this square 94.
So I'm just here's the log.i, the informational message. And so square is not null, right? It prints it up. Then it's something that's not null. So it should have drawn. How big is it? Well, the other one was 2020 and it showed. This one showed. No. No.
You have to force it to repeat.
I did that. Over here, I yes. No, it says 2020. So here it says 176, 302, 2020. This is the actual rectangle here. Right. And so where I was tapping, was hundreds, 200s, 300s. So, you might say, what if I tap like all the way in the top left corner? I don't even know what the top left corner of my thing is. No. It has something to do with the previous question. Yes, what am I passing? That's exactly right. I should not be passing the width and the height. That was in swing. You need to pass, instead of 2020, you need to pass whatever the rightmost x and the bottommost y are, and then it'll show up. But I put that in here because I did make that mistake, and it cost me a half hour of my life to figure this out. So just because, even though I had read it before, my fingers typed in the width and the height on autopilot. Yeah, so once you put that here, and so then, x plus 10, y plus 10 will work fine. Now it'll work fine. Okay, and you notice now in the log part here, now it shows the coordinates as top left, bottom right corner, and everything is fine.
What's that? Yeah, as far as the right. Oh, so bottom left, right. So he gave left as the width instead of.
Oh, I see. What am I doing here? Curves. What's that?
If you go, it's extra code in there. Is that on the slide somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh.
Why wouldn't I do that? Whatever. What do you mean?
Well, I don't get the log messages.
No, you'll get the log message. You just need to find the right window where they show up. Okay.
That's what I was gonna do. Like, how does it know that on-touch event is an event for flipping the screen? Is this a built-in thing?
Yes, it's hardwired in.
So it's not being called.
Your on-touch event is not being called?
Oh wait, I didn't draw it. So the on-touch event is being called, but there's no call for
Well, then that probably means that you didn't put in the call to post and validate.
that's right. What is that supposed to mean?
Makes a message that tells the GUI system to redraw that this component has now become invalid, and it should be redrawn. Yeah. Hoo 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 hoo. Yeah. My app has stopped. Yeah. A null pointer exception. Oh, because I'm stupid.
So we're actually defining, we're not defining corners, we're defining the side corner. The left would be the furthest ones to the left, basically. And then, so your point is defined by left and top, and then top and middle. Oh, so yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It's so weird. It's not the same way as the other.
Okay. Null pointer. Uh, 32. Oh, shut up. Oh. Okay. Okay. Uh, you got yours done? Yeah. Have a look at mine and tell me why it's not working. Have you find somebody? Oh, okay, I know.
You got it?
Yeah. I nested the ifs wrong.
Do you need the initializer?
Yeah. So for every field that you step, you must provide the
Where would you extend?
you can visit this. Just click this message first. Then you see it. You see it. This is a constraint. Alright.
Oh.
Huh?
It was like
Oh, that's right.
Call a message on the object.
Okay, so here you see it moving along, and then it crashes.
Initialize current inside that if.
What's that?
It's initialize current inside the first if. That way you set current and then you drag it like afterwards.
But then,
It only current only gets set. Oh, and also.
no, I need it here.
No, I made it an instance variable. That's right.
Oh, that's right, put in an instance variable.
Why?
So that it
Because the
only
next
gets.
time you call it, it loses it.
But it calls find. It recreates it each time.
Because when you drag the mouse to this, I don't think it finds it and it thinks it's null.
Yeah, but if it's null, then it goes into here, and then it should add it. Let's see what error.
If you're still moving it, it won't go over.
Well, let's see. We did get a stack trace here. So simple drawing view 56. Oh, because it's possible that here it's that current is not null. Okay. So I must have been dragging on some empty space, like you said, because I was losing it. Okay. Last thing. All right, here it goes. All right, so that's all I have for the day. Time is about up. So I hope this gave you a bit of a flavor on how one does this Android programming and how you can find your way around and read the error messages and so on. Should be helpful for the two teams who are working with that. And also, it should answer the question, why aren't we doing the entire course in Android? Because it is significantly more tedious to have to deal with the emulator than it is to deal with an app that just runs on your desktop. And sure, I mean, if that's what you need to do, you need to do it. But the principles really are the same. You've learned, once you know how to do one of these things, you can do them all. All right, thanks very much. So I'll see you again on Tuesday.